The gondola rocked gently as it drifted through the narrow canals of Venice, the water lapping softly against ancient stone. Lanterns flickered from the bridges above, casting shimmering gold and amber reflections over the inky water. The city smelled of history, salt and aged stone mingled with the faint sweetness of candle wax and the lingering aroma of fine wine. Janie sat opposite Tom, the space between them charged with an unspoken tension. Her dress was deep red, the silk pooling around her as she leaned back against the plush seat. A black lace mask concealed half her face, leaving only her lips exposed, the very lips he had once kissed in the dim glow of a Parisian street lamp, when he had been just drunk enough to tell her he loved her. But that had been months ago, a lifetime ago. Tom, ever composed, sat across from her. His black suit was as precise as ever, his mask sleek and polished. He had called her 3 days ago. No preamble, no hesitation. Meet me in Venice. She hadn't asked why. She had simply booked a flight and arrived, because when it came to Tom, she always did. Now, as they neared the palazzo, she felt the old, familiar unease coil in her stomach. Would this be another night of stolen hours, of whispered pleasures, before he vanished again? The gondola pulled to a stop, the gondolier tipping his hat before securing the boat. The golden glow of lanterns illuminated the marble steps leading to the grand entrance of the palazzo, where masked guests moved in silken waves, their laughter echoing into the night. Tom stepped out first, his movements effortless, controlled. He turned, extending his hand toward her. "Ready?" he asked. "For what?" she countered. Tom's lips curved in the faintest smirk. "To lose yourself for a night?" Inside, the air was thick with candlelight, music, and the scent of perfume and wine. The ballroom was a vision of decadence, gilded walls, chandeliers dripping with crystals, and a sea of masked figures dancing in elegant chaos. Tom kept a hand at the small of her back as they moved through the crowd. His grip was firm, possessive. She felt the weight of it, the silent claim in his touch, even as she knew it would never last beyond tonight. "You're nervous," he murmured against her ear, his breath warm against her skin. Janie exhaled, tilting her head slightly. "I don't know what this is." Tom turned her toward him, his fingers brushing the edge of her mask. His gaze, even through the anonymity of his own disguise, was intense. "Tonight you don't need to know." The orchestra swelled, and he extended his hand. She hesitated for half a second before taking it. They moved together as though they had done this 100 times before. His steps were precise, effortless. He led, she followed. As always. It was intoxicating, the way he commanded her body with the subtlest touch, the way his fingers traced over her wrist, her waist, the curve of her back. It was a dance, yes, but more than that. A game of power. A silent reminder of who was in control. "Do you trust me?" he asked suddenly. Her breath caught. The question was loaded, heavy with everything left unsaid between them. Did she? "Yes," she whispered. A slow smirk touched his lips. "Then follow me." He led her away from the ballroom, past corridors lined with ancient tapestries, through a hidden archway that opened onto a secluded balcony. Below, the Grand Canal shimmered in the moonlight, the quiet hum of the city stretching out into the distance. Janie barely had time to catch her breath before Tom turned to her. His hands found her wrists, pulling them behind her, pinning her lightly against the cool marble railing. "On your knees," he ordered softly. A thrill shot through her. Out here where anyone could walk past. The thought sent heat pooling low in her stomach. She obeyed, sinking gracefully before him, her pulse hammering in her ears. Tom tilted her chin up with 2 fingers, his touch light but commanding. Good girl. The praise sent a rush of warmth through her, making her ache for him. He let the moment stretch, savouring the control, watching her tremble under his gaze. You like being watched, don't you? He murmured. Janie's breath hitched, but she nodded. Tom's smirk deepened. Then let's give them something to see. The night unfolded in whispers and commands, in pleasure drawn out with agonizing slowness, in the sharp edge of his control and the deep, intoxicating safety of surrender. She gave herself over to him completely, her world narrowing to the sound of his voice, the feel of his hands, the heat of his body against hers. The suite was sprawling, high ceilings, gold accents, a king-sized bed draped in crisp white linens. She walked to the centre of the room, the city lights flickering through the tall windows. The moment she unzipped her gown and let it pool at her feet, she felt the weight of anticipation settle over her. She knelt, hands resting lightly on her thighs, head bowed, waiting, needing. Minutes passed. Her heart pounded with every second. Would he make her wait longer? Would he tease her, push her limits until she was shaking for him? Then the door clicked shut. She didn't look up, but she felt him move closer, the air shifting around him. A slow, measured exhale. Good girl, he murmured, and the praise sent heat curling deep inside her, the sound of silk sliding against silk, of him removing his jacket, his belt. Then the soft whisper of leather as he tested a flogger in his palm. Do you remember your safe word? Yes, sir. He trailed the leather strands over her bare shoulders, letting them tickle her skin before drawing them away. Tell me. Midnight. His approval was silent, but she felt it in the way his fingers brushed down the column of her neck, lingering there, warm and possessive. Tonight, he said, voice low and commanding, I'm going to take you apart, piece by piece. And when I'm done, when you have nothing left to give me, I'll put you back together again. She shuddered, arousal coiling hot and sharp inside her. This was what she craved, his control, his mastery. The complete surrender he pulled from her with just a word, a touch, a command. And Tom? He needed this too. The power, the certainty, the escape from a world where he was always pretending to be something else. Here, with her, he didn't have to pretend. Tonight, he would own her. And in doing so, she would own him too. Time dissolved. She lost herself to him, his voice, his hands, the firm strike of leather against her skin, the delicious sting followed by soothing caresses. He tested her limits, pushed her further, making her beg, making her tremble, making her his in every way. When he bound her wrists to the bed frame with silk scarves, when he pressed hot kisses along her spine before whispering filthy promises against her ear, when he took her again and again, claiming her with every thrust, every growl of mine. By the time he was done, she was boneless, her body spent, her skin marked with his touch. But Tom was different. Usually after nights like this he would pull away, distance himself, slide back into his impenetrable walls. Tonight, he didn't. Tonight, he lay beside her, pulling her against him, his breath still ragged, his fingers tracing absent patterns over her bare hip. Janie stirred, pressing her cheek to his chest. You're still here, she murmured, half-dazed. Tom let out a quiet chuckle, but there was something tired, almost defeated in it. For now, she hesitated, then gently. Are you ever going to tell me what you're running from? A long pause. Then, You. Janie stiffened, but before she could pull away, he tightened his grip around her. Not in the way you think. His lips brushed her temple. You make me want things I can't have, Janie. Her chest ached, the weight of his words sinking into her like an anchor. So, why did you call me? He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Because I wanted to feel something real before I go back to a life full of lies. Janie swallowed the lump in her throat. And when you leave in the morning? He didn't answer, because they both knew the truth. By sunrise he would be gone. Again. But tonight, just for tonight, he let himself stay. Tom was a man who lived in the shadows, a man whose world did not allow for permanence, for love, for the kind of devotion she craved. So she said nothing. Instead, she closed her eyes and let herself believe, just for tonight, that he was hers. Because by morning, he would be gone.